getting to the office that morning was one of the hardest tasks I've ever faced. I felt a knot in my stomach, as if I were going to a battlefield. I knew Michael, my boss, would be there, ready to throw his barbs and derogatory comments about my appearance. "Here comes the scarecrow," he would say, while colleagues would laugh, fueling the toxic environment that our office has become. As soon as I walked in, I saw Michael talking to some colleagues near the coffee machine. He saw me and a mischievous smile appeared on his face. "Good morning, Jessica. What did you decide to come dressed as today?" he mocked, and the others laughed. I gave a half smile, trying not to let on how much it affected me. I sat at my desk and tried to focus on work. But it was difficult. Every laugh, every whisper, seemed directed at me. I felt increasingly devalued, isolated. Why do you still put up with this? I asked myself, day after day. But that morning, something inside me changed. I decided I couldn't continue to be a victim of Michael's humiliation. I needed to do something to change this situation. During lunch, I sat alone in a corner of the break room, thinking about everything. Laura, a data analyst who also suffered from Michael's attitudes, came over and sat next to me. "Hi, Jessica. Can I sit here?" she asked, with a warm smile. "Of course, Laura," I replied, trying to sound more excited than I actually was. She looked at me sympathetically. I saw what happened earlier. Michael crossed the line. I sighed. He always passes by. And everyone laughs. I'm tired of it. But I don't know what to do. Laura leaned in closer. "Maybe we can do something together. You have a lot of good ideas. Have you thought about creating an innovative presentation to show your value?" I was surprised by the suggestion. An introduction? But no one would take me seriously. "I would," she said firmly. "And I'm sure others would too, if they saw how brilliant you are. I can help you with the data and the structure. Let's do this together." Those words lit a spark in me. For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope. "Do you really think we can do it?" Laura smiled. "I'm sure. Let's show Michael and everyone that you are much more than they think." From that moment on, I started to see a light at the end of the tunnel. I decided I would work on that presentation, not just to prove myself, but to regain my dignity. And with Laura's help, I knew I could do something really impactful. I returned to the office with new determination. Michael made a few more sarcastic comments throughout the day, but this time, they didn't hit me in the same way. I had a plan. And I was ready to put it into action. One night, tired of the constant humiliation and determined to change her situation, I decided that I needed to do something great. I started thinking about ways I could show my true value to the company, something that couldn't be ignored or ridiculed by Michael. It was then that the idea for an innovative presentation began to take shape in my mind. I spent sleepless nights, sitting at the table in my small kitchen, surrounded by piles of notes and books. I researched new trends in the market, innovation strategies and ways to optimize the company's processes. I wanted to create something that really made a difference, that showed everyone that I was more than the image Michael painted of me. On one of these nights, while I was in the company break room trying to find some peace to work, Laura, a data analyst with whom I had never spoken much, approached. She also looked exhausted, with deep circles under her eyes and a worried expression. "Working until late?" she asked, with a shy smile. "Yes, I'm trying to develop a presentation that could change things around here," I replied, a little surprised by her approach. Laura sat next to me, curious. "Can I see what you're doing?" I showed her some of my ideas and, to my surprise, she was excited. "Wow, that's amazing, Jessica. I think I can help with some data I recently collected. It can strengthen your presentation even more." From that moment on, we started working together. Laura was brilliant with numbers and analysis, and her insights were invaluable in the development of the project. She helped me polish every detail, making the presentation even more impactful. We spent hours discussing ideas, exchanging information and adjusting slides. One night, As we were reviewing a particularly complex chart for the umpteenth time, Laura paused and looked me in the eye. "You know, Jessica, you're a lot stronger than you think. Michael has no idea how much potential you have. And not only is he underestimating you, he treats me the same way as well." The revelation took me by surprise. I knew that Michael was rude to many, but I didn't imagine that Laura would also be a victim of his attitudes. "I had no idea, Laura. I'm so sorry you had to go through this too." She smiled sadly. "But that's why we're here, right? To change that. And I believe your performance can be the start of that change." With this new purpose in mind, our determination only grew. We decided that it would not just be a presentation, but a declaration of our capabilities and our value. Each night of hard work brought us closer to our goal, and our friendship grew every day. We supported each other, both professionally and emotionally, sharing our frustrations and hopes. One particularly difficult night, when doubts began to haunt me, Laura caught me staring at the computer screen, lost in thought. "Hey Jessica, what's going on?" she asked, worried. "I'm afraid all this isn't enough," I admitted, feeling a wave of insecurity. Laura held my hand and said firmly, "You are more than enough. We are. And we will prove it to everyone, including ourselves." These words were like a bomb, renewing my determination. We kept working, knowing we were creating something truly special. Something that would not only show my worth, but also the strength of all the people who, like Laura and me, were underestimated and disrespected. Every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, every chart tweak, it would all be worth it. We were about to defy expectations and show that, together, we were invincible. Laura and I shared our experiences and formed a bond of friendship and solidarity that was essential to my journey. I clearly remember the first time we opened up to each other. We were in the pantry, drinking coffee, when Laura, with an understanding look, said, "Jessica, I see what Michael does to you, and it's not fair. He does the same to me, in a different way. But we don't have to accept that." Her words hit me deeply. It was the first time anyone at the company openly acknowledged Michael's toxic behavior. From that moment on, our friendship blossomed. Laura has become a pillar of support and an invaluable partner in my quest to prove myself. With Laura's expertise in data analysis, she began offering valuable insights that polished my presentation. We spent hours after work working together. I brought creative ideas and strategic vision, while Laura analyzed the data, checked trends and adjusted crucial points to ensure that our proposal was irrefutable. "Look, Jessica," Laura said one night, pointing at the monitor. "If we adjust this projection here, we can show a 20% increase in efficiency. That will impress anyone, even Michael." I looked at the numbers, amazed. "You're right, Laura. This is exactly what we need. Thank you for believing in me." Our late-night work sessions were often interrupted by moments of venting and mutual support. Laura shared stories of her own struggles, and I felt less alone knowing I wasn't the only one suffering from Michael's toxicity. "Do you think he'll ever really change?" I asked Laura once, a little hopelessly. "Honestly, Jessica, I don't know. But what matters is that we are doing something to change. And that's a start." Together, we devised a plan to challenge Michael and show our true capabilities. We plan every detail of the presentation, from the most impactful graphics to the most persuasive statistics. Laura helped me rehearse, offering constructive feedback and encouraging me every step of the way. "You're killing it, Jessica. Don't let him put you down. You've got this in your hands," she said, as I practiced my speeches. The collaboration with Laura was a watershed. She not only raised the level of my presentation, but also gave me the confidence I needed to face Michael. Our friendship became a symbol of resilience and determination, and I knew that together we were stronger. As the day of the presentation approached, our bond grew even stronger. We supported each other, not just as coworkers, but as friends who shared their pains and triumphs. Laura was the anchor that kept my resolve firm, and I knew that regardless of the outcome, we had already achieved something important, the courage to stand up against injustice. "Let's do this, Jessica. Let's show them what we're capable of, Laura said the day before the performance, with a confident smile. Yes, let's go, I replied, feeling a surge of determination and hope. Let's change this story. I always knew something was wrong in the workplace, but it wasn't until John, one of the company's directors, began to discreetly investigate Michael's behavior that things really started to change. John was an observant and fair man, and I always admired his professional demeanor. He never turned a blind eye to problems, and this time was no different. It all started when John noticed the drop in team morale. He was always very attentive to the organizational climate and, from one moment to the next, he noticed that previously engaged and satisfied employees were becoming unmotivated and apathetic. That's when he decided to investigate further. Laura and I were some of the first people he talked to. Jessica, can I talk to you for a moment? John called me into his office, an environment always so well organized that reflected his meticulous personality. Of course, John. What happened? I replied, trying to hide my nervousness. I've noticed that you and some other colleagues seem to be feeling discouraged. I want to better understand what's going on. Would you feel comfortable sharing your recent experiences at work? He asked, with a genuinely concerned expression. I took a deep breath and told him about the daily humiliations Michael put us through. I told her about the cruel comments about my appearance and how it affected my performance and self-esteem. Laura also shared her experiences, and I was surprised to see how shocked and alarmed John was by our reports. That's unacceptable, John said firmly. No employee should have to go through this. I promise we will take action to resolve this situation. From that day on, John began to investigate further. He spoke to several other employees and collected a series of reports that confirmed Michael's abusive and disrespectful behavior. Every conversation John had seemed to strengthen his resolve to change the company's culture. Laura, can you come here for a moment? John called her into his office one day. Of course, John, Laura replied, entering the room with an expression of apprehension. I want to thank you and Jessica for having the courage to speak out. Your stories will not be in vain. I am determined to make meaningful changes to protect all of you, John said, looking directly into Laura's eyes. Thank you, John. This means a lot to us, Laura replied, visibly moved. With the reports in hand, John took his findings to the other directors of the company. He argued passionately and presented the evidence clearly and forcefully. It was a turning point, and all the directors agreed that something needed to be done immediately. Michael, we need to talk, John said one day, calling Michael into his office. What is it now, John? Michael responded with a tone of disdain, without imagining what was coming. We have received several complaints about your behavior. The evidence is clear and troubling. You need to change your ways or you will face severe consequences, John stated firmly. Michael turned pale. For the first time, he realized that his actions would have real consequences. Meanwhile, Laura and I continued to work on our presentation. We felt the pressure building, but we also knew we had John's support and that justice was finally being served. The company culture was about to change, and we were determined to be part of that transformation. Jessica, we're almost there, Laura said, reviewing the last details of our presentation. Yes, Laura. And thanks to John, we have a real chance to make a difference, I replied, feeling a surge of determination. John's investigation was the turning point that gave us hope and courage to move forward. We knew there was still a long way to go, but we were ready to face any challenge that came our way. The presentation would be our opportunity to show our true worth, and with John's support, we were more confident than ever. As the presentation approached, the pressure on me and Laura increased more and more. With each passing day, the anxiety seemed to grow exponentially. I knew this was my chance to prove myself and, who knows, change the course of my career and my life. Each night, we reviewed every detail of the presentation, adjusting graphics, polishing slides, and rehearsing speeches. Laura and I were determined not to miss anything. Jessica, do you think we should add more risk analysis here? Laura asked, pointing to a chart on the slide. Yes, I think that would be a good idea. Let's show that we have thought of every possible aspect, I replied, trying to hide the nervousness in my voice. We were close to the deadline, and any mistake could be fatal. As the day of the presentation approached, my mind wavered between nervousness and fierce determination. I knew Michael would be there, ready to ridicule me once again. But I also knew that John would be there, and that gave me some hope. He had demonstrated himself to be a fair leader, someone who cared about the well-being of his employees. Knowing he would be there to evaluate my presentation gave me a little more courage. You're prepared for this, Jessica. You've worked hard. Don't let fear paralyze you, Laura said, trying to comfort me the night before the big day. I know, Laura. It's just, what if I fail? You won't fail, she insisted, holding my hands. We're in this together. And even if something goes wrong, you did your best. And that's a big step. On the day of the presentation, we arrived at the office earlier than usual. The conference room was already prepared, and, little by little, coworkers began to arrive. I could feel the tension in the air. Everyone was curious to see if I could impress or if it would be another fiasco for Michael to delight in. Jessica, take a deep breath. Let's review it one more time and then just trust our work, Laura said, trying to remain calm. Finally, the conference room was full. John was sitting in the front row, looking attentive and encouraging. Michael was there too, with his usual air of superiority, ready for any mistake I made. It was now or never. Good morning, everyone, I began, trying to keep my voice steady. Today, I introduce you to a new approach that could revolutionize the way we operate. As I moved through the slides, I could feel everyone's attention focused on me. My confidence grew with each slide presented. Laura was right, we were prepared. This model not only increases efficiency, but also significantly reduces operating costs, I explained, pointing to a detailed chart. Interesting, I heard John mutter to himself as he wrote something down in his notebook. Michael, on the other hand, looked disconcerted. He could not find fault with his usual criticisms. This gave me even more courage. When I finished, the room fell silent for a few seconds that seemed like forever. Then the applause began. First shy, then stronger. John got up and came over to me. Jessica, that was really impressive. You did an excellent job, he said, shaking my hand. Thank you, John. This means a lot to me, I replied, feeling a rush of relief and happiness. Michael avoided looking me in the eye, and in that moment, I knew something had changed. Not just for me, but for everyone who, like me, had suffered from his cruel attitudes. That night, Laura and I celebrated our victory. We knew that presentation was just the beginning of a big change. John, inspired by our courage and dedication, implemented a series of leadership and respect training in the workplace, aiming to transform the company's culture. Michael was confronted by directors about his behavior and given an ultimatum: change his ways or face severe consequences. And, surprisingly, the transformation in the office was palpable in a short time. I gained everyone's respect and became an informal leader, inspiring others to speak out against inappropriate behavior. My friendship with Laura grew stronger every day, and together, we promoted a more positive and inclusive work environment. Team morale improved and productivity increased significantly. The victory that day was not just mine, but that of everyone who believed that respect and justice are fundamental in any work environment. And finally, I was being recognized for my true worth. I arrived at the office with a mix of nervousness and determination. Laura was by my side, offering words of encouragement with every step. Today is the day, Jess. Let's show everyone what you're capable of, she said, giving my shoulder a gentle squeeze. Thank you, Laura. I don't know what I would do without you, I replied, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. We entered the conference room, which was already starting to fill with curious colleagues and some incredulous ones. The tension was palpable, and I could feel the eyes on me, some expectant, others clearly waiting for another opportunity to laugh at my failure. Michael was there, of course, with that sarcastic smile that gave me goosebumps. Let's see what you've prepared this time, Jessica. I hope it's not another waste of time, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, before settling back into the chair, crossing his arms. I ignored the provocation and focused on the preparations. Laura helped me set up the projector and test the audio. Everything's ready, Jess. Everything's going to be fine, she whispered, giving me an encouraging look. John, one of the company's directors, entered the room and sat in a strategic place, where he could observe everything. He gave me a discreet wave, silently encouraging me. Your presence gave me an extra dose of courage. I knew he was aware of Michael's behavior and was there to support me, but the challenge was still enormous. I took a deep breath and started the presentation. Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to share with you a new approach that can transform the way we operate and bring significant results to the company. Within the first few minutes, I felt the tension in the room begin to shift. As I progressed through the slides, explaining each point with clarity and passion, the looks of skepticism began to turn into expressions of surprise and wonder. I could see some colleagues nodding, interested in the ideas I presented. Laura, sitting in the front row, gave me positive signals, encouraging me to continue. She knew as much as I did how much that meant. Michael, on the other hand, looked disconcerted. He tried to interrupt at times, but each time he did so, I responded with firmness and confidence. If you can wait until the end, Michael, I'll answer all your questions, he said, without losing his composure. He snorted but remained silent. I knew he was uncomfortable, and that gave me even more strength to continue. When I finished the presentation, the room fell silent for a few seconds that seemed like an eternity. Then John started applauding, and soon everyone else followed suit. Excellent work, Jessica. Your ideas are really innovative and have great potential to improve our processes, he said, standing up and walking towards me. Thank you, John. It was hard work, but I really believe in what I presented, I replied, feeling a wave of relief and joy. Michael, clearly upset, tried to maintain his posture. It was interesting, Jessica. Let's see if these ideas actually work in practice, he said, but his voice didn't have the same confidence as before. I believe they will work, Michael. And I will be here to make sure they are implemented in the best way possible, I replied, not afraid to face him. Laura came to me, hugging me. You killed it, Jess. I'm so proud of you. Thank you, Laura. I couldn't do it without your help, I replied, moved. As colleagues came to congratulate me, I felt that something had really changed. It wasn't just my presentation that had been a success, but my own perception of myself. I had finally shown my worth, and no one, not even Michael, could take that away from me. When the day of the presentation finally arrived, I felt a mix of nervousness and determination. It was my chance to show everyone, especially Michael, what I was really capable of. Laura and I arrived at the office early to make sure everything was perfect. The conference room began to fill up, and I slowly felt the weight of expectation fall off my shoulders. You can do it, Jessica. I believe in you, Laura whispered, squeezing my shoulder with an encouraging smile. I took a deep breath and walked to the front of the room. The lights dimmed, and the projector illuminated the screen behind me. Good morning, everyone, I began, trying to keep my voice steady. Today, I bring you a proposal that I believe can revolutionize the way our company operates. As I went slide by slide, I could feel the energy in the room change. My colleagues, who had previously worn skeptical expressions, began to lean forward, really paying attention. They were interested, and that gave me the strength to continue. Every point I made was meticulously detailed, with graphs and analyses that Laura had helped me prepare. As we can see, implementing this new system will not only increase efficiency, but also reduce operating costs by up to 20% in the first 6 months, I said, pointing to a graph showing projected savings. I glanced at Michael, who was sitting in the back of the room with his eyebrows furrowed. He looked perplexed, clearly not expecting me to be capable of something so impactful. John, on the other hand, was frantically taking notes, visibly impressed. Jessica, these numbers are truly impressive. Could you tell us more about the methodology you used to reach these conclusions? John interrupted, raising his hand. Of course, John, I replied, feeling confidence growing within me. We used a combination of predictive analytics and case studies from other companies that had implemented similar systems. Laura was instrumental in ensuring our data was accurate and relevant. Laura waved discreetly to me, and I continued the presentation with a renewed sense of purpose. Every question that came up was answered clearly and precisely, and I could see that, little by little, I was gaining the respect of everyone in the room. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. My heart was beating fast, waiting for the reaction. Then, John was the first to applaud, followed by the others. The sound of applause filled the room, and I felt a rush of relief and satisfaction. Congratulations, Jessica. That was truly extraordinary, John said, rising from his chair. Let's discuss more about how we can implement these ideas. You really showed great value to the company today. I looked at Michael, expecting some negative reaction, but he was silent, with a defeated expression on his face. He knew he couldn't belittle me anymore. Jessica, you surprised us today, he finally said, trying to maintain his composure. Good job. Thank you, Michael, I replied, keeping my gaze steady. I hope we can work together to further improve the company. When the meeting ended, Laura ran up to me and hugged me. You were amazing. I knew you could do it. I couldn't have done it without you, Laura, I replied, feeling deep gratitude for her friendship and support. As we walked out of the conference room, I knew this was just the beginning. My presentation had been a success, but the real challenge would be ensuring that changes were implemented and that the work environment became more positive and respectful. And I was ready to face it all, with Laura by my side and John's support. Jessica's presentation was a resounding success. When I finished the last slide and faced the room full of colleagues, I couldn't help but notice the surprise and, in many cases, admiration on everyone's faces. For a moment, silence prevailed, but it was soon broken by a timid applause that quickly turned into a standing ovation. I couldn't believe it. The words of John, one of the directors, echoed in the room. Congratulations, Jessica. That was impressive. He said, with a genuine smile on his face, as he stood up to greet me. Michael, my boss, looked like he had swallowed a lemon. His usual expression of arrogance had disappeared, giving way to a mask of perplexity and, perhaps, even a little fear. He was always quick to criticize me, but now he was mute. I knew that moment was crucial, not only for me, but for everyone who, like me, had already been victims of Michael's toxic attitudes. After the presentation, John called me into his office for a chat. Laura was also present. I felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. When we sat down, John started talking. Jessica, your presentation was, without a doubt, one of the best we've seen here at the company. Your dedication, innovation and courage are an example for us all. He paused, looking directly at me. I want you to know that we are aware of Michael's inappropriate behavior and it will no longer be tolerated. Laura, who was next to me, added. Jessica, you were incredible. I'm so proud of you. She held my hand, conveying silent but powerful support. John continued. We will implement a series of leadership and respect training in the workplace. We need to transform the company culture. Michael will be confronted by directors about his behavior and given an ultimatum, change his ways or face severe consequences. I felt relieved and hopeful. Not just for me, but for all my colleagues. Change was finally coming. The next day, Michael was called to a board meeting. The tension in the office was palpable. Everyone knew something important was happening. When he left the meeting, his face was gloomy. It was clear that things would no longer be the same as before. John called me back into his office and shared the next steps. Michael has been informed that from now on his behavior will be closely monitored. He has one last chance to change, otherwise he will be fired. John paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I want you to know that you have our support. The courage you have shown is inspiring and will not go unnoticed. I thanked him, feeling a huge weight lifted from my shoulders. I knew there was still a long way to go, but this was a significant step in the right direction. In the days that followed, the company began to implement training and the environment in the office began to change. People were more engaged, less fearful. My friendship with Laura grew even stronger, and together, we continued to foster a more positive and inclusive work environment. One afternoon, while we were reviewing some data, Laura looked at me with a knowing smile. "Jessica, do you realize what you did? You changed everything here," she said, her eyes shining with pride. "I didn't do this alone, Laura. You were with me the whole time," I replied, returning the smile. Team morale improved and productivity increased significantly. Everyone was more united and committed to collective success. However, Michael's story was not over yet. An internal audit revealed that he was diverting company funds for personal use. John, who already had his eye on him, took the opportunity to fire him immediately and initiate legal proceedings. When the news spread, the feeling of justice done was evident. I, because of my courage and determination, was promoted to a leadership position. I received a financial reward and, more importantly, the recognition I always deserved. The company became an example of a positive and inclusive environment, thanks to the support of Laura and John and, of course, my decision to no longer accept being underestimated. As I looked to the future, I knew this was just the beginning. The real change had begun and I was ready to lead with integrity, respect, and empathy. I could never imagine how my life would change after that performance. From the moment I stepped off the makeshift stage in the conference room, I felt a change in the air. The looks of disdain and suspicion that previously followed me around the office were replaced by expressions of respect and admiration. Finally, after so much effort and sleepless nights, I had proven myself. But the amazing thing was that this was just the beginning. The next morning, when I arrived at the office, I was greeted with smiles and warm greetings from colleagues who had previously not spoken to me. "Good morning, Jessica. Your performance was amazing yesterday," said Clara, one of the administrative assistants. "Thank you, Clara. It means a lot to hear that," I replied, feeling a comforting warmth in my chest. That simple exchange of words was a sign that things were really changing. Laura and I became even closer after that day. Our friendship, which began as mutual support against Michael's humiliations, has blossomed into something much stronger and more meaningful. We spent our coffee breaks discussing new ideas to improve the company's processes and planning ways to make the work environment more inclusive and positive. "You know, Jessica, I think we can really make a difference here," Laura said one day as we were drinking coffee in the pantry. "I agree, Laura. We have to keep fighting for this. We can't let one person's behavior destroy the spirit of the entire team," I replied, feeling a new determination rise within me. John also played a key role in this transformation. He not only implemented leadership and respect training, but also held regular meetings where all employees had the opportunity to express their opinions and concerns. "I want to hear from all of you. This is our space to improve together," John said at each meeting. This new openness to dialogue made everyone feel more valued and heard. Team morale improved drastically. People were more motivated and committed to their work. Projects that previously seemed stagnant began to come to life, and the company's productivity increased significantly. I became a kind of informal leader, and that filled me with pride. "Jessica, can you help me with this analysis?" asked a colleague one day. "Sure, let's work on it together," I replied promptly. It was gratifying to see that my opinion and help were now sought after and valued. But what touched me most was seeing other people speaking out against inappropriate behavior. I once witnessed a colleague expressing his displeasure with another employee's disrespectful attitude. He said, "That's not acceptable here. We all deserve respect." It was proof that the company's culture was truly changing, and I was deeply moved to realize that my courage had inspired others to do the same. Laura and I also started organizing small internal events to promote team bonding. "Shall we have happy hour on Friday?" Laura suggested. "Great idea. It's a great way for everyone to get to know each other better outside of work, I agreed. These small gestures help to strengthen bonds between colleagues and create a more cohesive and collaborative environment. And so, day after day, the transformation in the office became more and more palpable. Michael, realizing that his behavior would no longer be tolerated, became increasingly isolated until his eventual dismissal following the discovery of the embezzlement. It was a relief for everyone, and a clear message that the company would no longer accept toxic and unethical attitudes. That presentation kicked off a silent but powerful revolution that changed not only my life, but the lives of everyone around me. And finally, I was able to feel truly valued and recognized for my work, something I always hoped for, but never imagined I would achieve in such an impactful way. That morning at the office felt like any other, but I felt a tension in the air that I couldn't ignore. For weeks, I had worked tirelessly on my presentation, and today would be the day everything changed. Or at least, I hoped it would change. I knew I would face another day of looks and whispers, but the apprehension I felt was an omen that something bigger was about to happen. On my way to my desk, I noticed Michael watching me from his office, an expression of surprise and suspicion on his face. He wasn't used to seeing me so confident, so determined. Laura, my friend and ally, was already at her table, and our eyes met in silent mutual support. It was good to know that I wasn't alone in this battle. As I organized my materials, John, the director who had been discreetly investigating Michael's behavior, entered the conference room. He gave us a slight wave and a reassuring smile. I knew I could count on him to ensure justice prevailed, but even so, anxiety was inevitable. The presentation was about to start, and the conference room was packed. All eyes were on me. I took a deep breath and started talking, trying to stay calm. Every word, every slide was meticulously prepared to demonstrate not only the viability of my ideas, but also my value as a professional. Good afternoon, everyone, I began, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. Today, I would like to share a proposal that I believe will revolutionize the way we operate. As I progressed, I could see the change in my colleagues' faces. Initial skepticism gave way to growing admiration. Michael, visibly disconcerted, could not find words for his usual criticism. He was being unmasked, not only by my work, but also by John's investigation. When I finished the presentation, the room erupted in applause. Laura, who was next to me, gave me a tight hug. "You killed it, Jessica," she said, her eyes shining with pride. John stood up and addressed everyone. Jessica's presentation was a shining example of innovation and dedication. This is exactly the type of initiative we want to encourage here at the company. He paused, looking directly at Michael. I would also like to take this moment to announce that we are implementing a series of leadership and respect training in the workplace. It is essential that everyone feels valued and respected. Michael turned pale. He knew his time was running out. However, the real shock came a few days later when an internal audit revealed that he had been diverting company funds for personal use. John, who already had his eye on Michael, took the opportunity to act immediately. "Michael, I need you to come to my office now," John said firmly. Laura and I were nearby and heard the conversation. "What's going on, John?" Michael tried to maintain his composure, but his voice was shaking. "We discovered that you are embezzling company funds. You are fired, and legal proceedings will be initiated against you." John got straight to the point, leaving no room for discussion. The news spread quickly around the office. Michael was removed from the company, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. My courage and determination had made a difference. A few days later, I received a summons to John's office. I walked in, nervous but hopeful. "Jessica, I am pleased to inform you that because of your excellent work and courage, we are promoting you to a leadership position. We are also offering a financial reward for the positive impact you have brought to our company." John smiled, extending his hand to shake me. With tears of joy in my eyes, I shook his hand. "Thank you very much, John. This means a lot to me." Laura appeared in the doorway, smiling. "I knew you could do it, Jess," she said, before giving me a tight hug. "The company has undergone a remarkable transformation. Team morale improved and the work environment became more positive and inclusive. This is all thanks to Jessica's courage and Laura and John's unwavering support." Now, we were an example of how determination and solidarity can change the world around us.